here at Feeling Terrific. Today I have an interesting guest with me, someone I worked in the past with. I think we found a few good people, hopefully. But it's Jennifer Matzinger with me today, and I don't take it up front. Over to you, Jennifer. Let us know, who are you in your own words?
Well, thank you so much, Christian. And thank you for this amazing opportunity. I'm thrilled to be here today. As you mentioned, we've had a great opportunity to work together. And I do agree, we've found some great talent along the way. But for those who I haven't had a chance to meet, my name is Jennifer Matzinger, and I am the Global Solution Consulting Director for our newly minted .org team, which is a team dedicated to supporting our nonprofit customers in their drive towards digital transformation.
Yeah, maybe. So thank you for your intro, right? But maybe let's dig a little bit deeper into .org. You mentioned it or scratched it already a little bit, but somebody who didn't have a chance to get to know this kind of environment, what does .org mean?
So it's such a great question, Christian. And as a sales team, we get asked often, right? And at the heart of ServiceNow's business is a strong sense of purpose, community, and making the worlds of work better for everyone. And .org was really born out of that purpose. Our ambition as an organization is to bring the power of the ServiceNow platform and technology to nonprofits at scale. Traditionally, what we've seen is that nonprofits haven't been able to take advantage of digital transformation at the same size and scale as a Fortune 500, let's say. And, when we thought about our purpose as a company, serving that marketplace was key. And ServiceNow.org is one of the ways that we're living our purpose as a company through the platform. And the technology component is critical, right? Equipping nonprofits with technology to simplify, automate, and create agility to achieve their missions is of the utmost importance. But arguably as important is our philanthropic commitment to the community in giving back.
Maybe 2 points, right? So first, I would like to say that at least my understanding of what you mentioned, right, is that you talk about this topic a lot, obviously in your role, right? But it sounded very quite straightforward. So that's one thought. The other thought is maybe from a different perspective. This is obviously kind of the general overview of .org, and especially, as you mentioned, in ServiceNow, right? But what's your take on it? Why are you in the .org organization and not, for example, working with enterprise customers?
Yeah, I love that question too. My motivation started at a very young age when my youngest brother was born. With the exception of my mom going into labor in the middle of my homework, I was thrilled. 6 years younger than me, I couldn't wait to take care of him, dress him up, and let's be honest, as an older sister, boss him around. And when he was born, by all definitions, he was sweet and adorable, and I guess what we would say a normal baby. But at the age of 2 is when we realized that there was something very special about him. And so started our journey as a family and our experience of loving a person with disabilities. And in that moment, even as young as I was, without realizing it, I became his champion, advocate, and a voice where he didn't have one. And as my, family volunteered for many of the organizations that helped to support my brother on his journey, through that volunteer work, I was asked to speak at an organization called Partners for Disabilities, which was an opportunity for siblings to share their experience, and what that was like. And the positive outcome of that day was motivating others and to create community programs in the spirit of education, driving support and compassion for people with disabilities so that they were treated more equally. And at 17, in that moment, I learned the power within each of us to create opportunities and to drive meaningful change in positive ways. So fast forward to my career journey, I've had the very unique opportunity for the last 25 years in both sales and pre-sales roles to take that passion for creating meaningful change in bridging the gap between business requirements and technical capabilities to drive business transformation, for many organizations and many of the Fortune 500. But when I learned that ServiceNow had ambitions around .org, this was literally my dream job. It was an opportunity to take all of my success in sales and pre-sales and to marry that with my passions and my ambitions and my personal values to make the world better for others through positive change. And I take that, that passion that I have for both of those experiences into my role today as Global SC Director for .org.
Yeah. No, I mean, inspiring because what you mentioned about empowering, being a voice for people, that might be overheard most of the time, or the likelihood is quite high. Bridging the gap, all good perspectives indeed. Would you say though that it is necessary to have such an experience for working or serving .org customers or being in that environment? Do you think that makes a difference?
It's such a great question. I think it makes a difference, but I don't think it has to be necessary. I think there are a lot of people in the world who may not have had the same experience as I, but still see the opportunity and the moments and the power within them to create positive change. They may have a different story, or maybe something else has influenced them in a different way. But I think it's really just recognizing the power within you to create that change, which is really the shared purpose that we all have today as a team. We've all come to the .org team, through different channels and different career paths. But what brings us together now is our shared purpose.
When you made the transition from working with enterprise customers, right, and then into the .org environment, did you, when you self-reflect, did you also recognize a change in your mindset and in your approach of leadership?
Yeah, another great question. I love that question. I had global experience in prior roles for a long time, actually, before coming to ServiceNow. So that part wasn't new to me. And I've been part of startups and building within a larger organization. So I had experience there as well. But there were some nuances, right, about starting this business and, hiring the entire team. We started with 0 solution consultants when I started in the role, which I know you know well. And now we have 11 solution consultants globally, and that continues to grow. I think what was most important in that transition is having an open mindset and propensity to learn new skills at all stages of your career. It's a very invaluable skill to have. We're constantly learning and growing and really building, relationships and meaningful connections across the business, so that as you're growing and evolving your career, that you have others that you can lean on to help support you based on their experience. Because I do believe that we all have the power within us. And the last part of that, I would say, is to dream big. This is this role, like I mentioned, really is my dream big role. And I think for others, dreaming big is not just a wish, it's a roadmap to your aspirations. And when you dream big in your career, it's not just about personal success, right? It's an opportunity to weave your ambitions into the spirit of giving back and being of service to others. And I think if I wasn't able to dream big, and to dream big about the capabilities and the aspiration of the team, we wouldn't have the success that we're having now in the spirit of helping our nonprofit customers.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. When it comes to having a growth and open mindset, right? What would you say? What's the importance, or what role does this mindset, this approach has in terms of dreaming big? Is it the basis? Is it necessary? Is it a nice to have? Is it the key to success? What is the definition of success when dreaming big?
Yeah, I love your questions, Christian. I think it's the basis. I think dreaming big in your career aspirations and how you do your day-to-day responsibilities and how you serve your customers and others is really a basis. It allows you to innovate. It's energizing and it allows you to be creative and think outside of the box in the spirit of serving others. The other advantage of dreaming big is that it gives you a competitive advantage because it takes you the extra mile along your career, your customer engagements. And I can promise you one thing, there is not any competition along the extra mile.
That's a great shout. Yeah, no, it's, I mean, when dreaming big, for example, when I think about it, how I would have been, or probably how I reacted in the past to it is like, am I worth it, right? So the classic imposter syndrome and stuff. But I mean, for example, also with this podcast, right? In the beginning, it was like, okay, it's just another one. Is it worth the time, etc., etc., right? But after 1.5 years, I can say the best thing that, I mean, not the best thing, let's be honest, that's my wife, but besides that, right? Because it's not just giving energy and stuff, but also empowering myself, right? Also having conversations with people like you. I mean, how inspiring is that? And that I'm having the privilege to have those conversations. So just being grateful, right? Yeah.
Well, kudos to you. I think, we had a chance to talk for a few minutes before we started here today. And I think that what you're doing is tremendous. We both shared that earlier in our careers, it wasn't always easy to have access to, get feedback from others in leadership positions, and the way that you're influencing and inspiring others and giving them access to information that they may not otherwise have, I think is valuable. And not only are you helping others, but I'm thrilled to hear that it's empowering you as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. And curious about the journey ahead, to be honest. But maybe from a different perspective, again, when it comes to the journey, the evolution of your personal mindsets, how would you describe it? I mean, have you always been that open-minded, or how did that evolve?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. It may be some combination of my experience with my brother, or just other experiences I had along the way. I always had this sense early in life that there was a power within me to create positive change. So, the short answer is yes. And I invest a lot of time. I think there's something empowering about imposter syndrome because it always challenges you to grow and to do better and to do more. You never feel like you're quite doing enough. Where some people look at it as it might be debilitating, I look at it as an opportunity to learn more. And I think one growth area for me as I've gotten older and, further on in my career is not being afraid and having courage, not being afraid to ask questions of other people and to ask for help. And I had ambitions when I got to ServiceNow. I had a bold ask around somebody that I was hoping to mentor me in the organization. And years past, I probably wouldn't have asked that. But what was the worst? They were going to say no. And, at the end of it, I was given that individual and the opportunity to mentor with them. And I think just having that courage and that openness and having that open mindset was a really important part of that. And the downstream benefit is that the mentoring that I got through that relationship, I've been able to pass on to others. So that individual didn't only help me in my career journey, but they helped others, that they may not have had direct contact with them. So I think that's a really important part of, having a growth mindset.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, it's kind of a multiplication factor,
Yes.
which somebody normally don't think about, right? But that's a very good point. And I bet, correct me if I'm wrong, but communication was a key part or is a key part in mentoring, right? From a
Yes.
different perspective now, when you're talking to companies in a way in the .org environment, right? Usually, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but usually when I think about it, usually as you also said it, right? usually they are not familiar. Then usually they are not that much digitalized as enterprise clients or prospects or and so forth. What do you think about communication? I mean, is it just communication so that you are being able to pass the message what ServiceNow can do for the customer? Or is it also more like communication is the basis for empathy that leads then to kind of a connection with the prospect client, and then that the client or prospect is able to see the value and develop and take the next step in the evolution? Or how would you describe that?
I think communication is a critical aspect of adding value to a customer. And in order to do that, it starts with really understanding and learning and knowing that customer more so than they even know about themselves, right? That's a critical component because that empowers you to communicate with them in a meaningful way. And the best form of communication that I find and my experience has showed me is storytelling, right? Storytelling, understanding the customer, meeting them where they're at, and painting a more simplistic, better picture of what their future can look like. And I think the underlying competency and skill in that process is communicating, but it really starts with understanding your customer, meeting them where they're at, knowing their business, having conversations with the right people, the people that are impacted by their business. In this case, our nonprofit customers, and understanding those who are impacted by their mission, so that you can really innovate, dream big, think outside of the box, and come to them with a story and a solution to help drive change. But I think communicating through storytelling is a big part of that.
Yeah. When it comes to storytelling, obviously that's a method that can be used in very different scenarios, right?
Yes.
And at the end, it's one thing to set a .org organization up, right? At the end, and I think that's also what we've experienced and you're still experiencing, right? It's also about the people who are in with you on the journey. I mean, thinking about it, has it been part, for example, when you had conversations with candidates? So are you also kind of, I wouldn't say testing, but trying to find out if they are able to use storytelling?
It's such a great question. I've been so surprised, probably more so than I should be, by the passion of people, and within that, the passion of people within the work that we're doing, and within that experience, the storytelling is very natural. I hear examples of personal stories in the recruiting process. I hear stories of people who have volunteered and the impact and what that means to them. Even stories, the most recent interviews that we've had, now that .org has been formed and we've been operating for about a year now, of those who have seen Vanessa or who have seen myself or other leaders and are just inspired. So it naturally becomes a part of the interview. They're so excited to tell us that I get to experience the stories very early on. And for those who don't have it, not to say that they're not a good fit for opportunities, but it does come out pretty front and center for those who are who are good storytellers and naturally passionate about the work that we're doing.
Yeah, no, got it. When it comes to empowering, right, and being inspired, I mean, most of the time it's quite easier said than really done, right? Mm. When you think about it, I mean, besides the names of people who inspire you, but most importantly, why do they inspire you?
I think it's really, it's about creating positive change and just the power that each of us have to create that positive change. There's so many different examples in .org. We work with so many different nonprofits, some that, personally align with missions that are important to me, and some that don't, but still seeing the great work of people, seeing their passion in the work that they're doing, and seeing that they're looking to create such positive change in the world is inspiring to me and to others on the team.
When a company usually says that they have impact, that they are changing lives. I mean, it's one thing that ServiceNow says we make the world work better for everyone. It's quite bold, but I think, I not just I think, but there's also a basis behind, right? But when it comes to .org, I think this has much more to do as well with emotions, right? When I think about it, it's not just a non-profit, but a non-profit that changes life. And when a company is coming, who is also on the stock market and stuff, right? So kind of under pressure. When such a company is saying that we are changing lives with our solution for the non-profit organization and so forth, why do you think ServiceNow is really having an impact there? Do you have an example for us?
Yeah, it's my favorite question, Christian. And I alluded to it earlier, when I shared, what is .org and what does that mean to ServiceNow? And clearly there's a critical component of the technology innovation that we're bringing to scale to nonprofit customers, the same way that our for-profit customers have experienced for years. But really the true value and the one thing that gets me up most mornings is really our philanthropic efforts and our ability to give back as a team. So in addition to the technology that we're supporting for these organizations, we also have a KPI as a leadership team to increase our volunteer hours across the sales organization. So that's one tangible way as a sales team that we've come together. ServiceNow is a very big organization. And if the entire sales team is out in the field, in the community, volunteering, that's just one way that we're moving the needle. In addition to that, we've also included volunteer opportunities and volunteer events at most of our major events in our quarterly business reviews and internal meetings. So when you look at some of the, like our sales kickoff we had recently, there was a volunteer event that was widely held across the sales team where we were packing backpacks for children. And when we have our leadership meetings and other meetings within the organization, we also have a volunteer event as part of that as well. And then lastly, we just shared publicly over the past few weeks, but we are donating over $2 million in technology in conjunction with our partners in the community to help support through a grant for nonprofit organizations. So we very congruent with what we're doing in the market in representing and being part of supporting nonprofit customers. But most importantly is that, we really walk the walk and talk the talk. We're not just positioning technology, but we're in the field volunteering. We're donating money in big, significant ways. And we're really putting our people behind helping drive the mission of a lot of these organizations.
Maybe I'm biased, but that's a great statement. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So let's have a look at authenticity. I believe, and also when I reflect on my career so far, that being authentic is not just something that, is nice to have from someone, from myself, but also what I highly request from a manager, right? Or from a leader. Because I believe that authenticity is not just a buzzword, it creates purpose, right? So how would you describe your mindset, your approach on being authentic and creating purpose, also maybe in your current role as a global leader?
In the spirit of being authentic, I'll be very transparent. This was a growth opportunity for me when I first got into leadership years ago, before I even came to ServiceNow. I was afraid is probably the right word, of either not being liked or not doing well enough at my job. But what I've learned in being authentic and being true to yourself is that's where you really build trust-based relationships, and where you can also get help and support along the way. I always say, as a leader, I'm just responsible, right? We're all in this together. And I think, being authentic is about, being true to yourself and really building those trust-based relationships in the spirit of being of service to your team, so that they can grow and they can be successful and they can, accomplish their ambitions. But that really, earlier in my leadership career, that was a struggle for fear of probably imposter syndrome, right? Fear of not being ready or not being able to do the right things. And I had some really great mentors along the way that helped to support me and say, hey, it's okay to not know everything. It's okay to have to ask for help for something. And that was an eye-opening moment. And the more authentic I was, the better engagements I had, the faster my career went, to be very honest with you. So that was a very pivotal and learning moment for me.
So one thing for the audience, a takeaway: be authentic, and all that needs to happen will come. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for your time. We are almost at the end of our conversation. Really appreciate it. Again, it's really great to have you here. What we have on this podcast is that the previous guests ask a question for the next one. So I would like to ask you the question now from our current guest. And then it's up to you to ask for the next one. So the question is, one thing that you learned in 2023 and that you will do differently or learn from it in 2024?
This is a very, very good question. I reflect a lot, right? And I definitely reflect and strategize. Being a growth-minded person, it's naturally something that I do on the daily, maybe a little more than I should. I think being more action-oriented, right? Last year, we had a lot of great ideas, and ideas are amazing. But if you don't put action and execution behind them and hold yourself accountable, then it becomes just that, an idea. And last year, we were building the team up from the ground, as you know, and hiring a lot, and a lot was going on. But I think purposeful and intentional action is very important. It's actually my word for 2024 is intentional building. And I think taking that action is something that I'm more mindful of doing every day and every week as compared to last year. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, it's a great point. For example, I can also relate to it. It took me 3.5 months from having ideas of the podcast and then really starting and doing something. So I totally get your point. No, thank you for sharing. What's the question you want to ask the next person?
What I'd love to learn from people is, what was a pivotal or game-changing point in their career, right? What you find with those who excel in their career, there's often these moments where it either stretched them or accelerated their career. And I always love to ask that question of others. I think you can learn a lot in those moments from other people's experiences. So that would be my question.
That's a good question, and I'm curious about the answer, to be honest. No, but thank you again, Jennifer. It was a real pleasure to talk to you for my evening, for your morning. But over to you for the last words.
Well, Christian, I think I said it to you earlier, but, thank you for including me in this process. I was so humbled when you asked me. I had just shared with you, but this was my dream to be on a podcast. I have such a passion for inspiring others because I've had so many great mentors and leaders in front of me. So thank you to you as well for investing the time here and for considering me in our discussion today.
And I can't wait to have a coffee with you in the new Munich office.
Yes. Is that an
Let me know when you're
invitation?
coming.
I will be there. I will be there soon.
Perfect. Take care.
Thank you. You as well.